Okay, so this is Will Cameron, an old friend of mine. Well, I guess everyone on this show has been an old friend of mine. But Will, how did we meet?
Hi, my name's Will, and we met through Friends, the festival group that you had. Just random, I guess. And they were my friends from Denton, and we ended up both being in Denton and knowing the same people, and socially just kind of started hanging out more.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it went. But really, it was through Taylor specifically, right?
Yeah, Taylor. And the
So,
Noodles.
yeah, Taylor. Okay, so he said festival group. Festival group that we had was appropriately named Team Laser Noodles, and it grew to the point where it failed, but it was a good time. And one of the people.
It's not failed. It's still going on. There's a Discord channel. There's a Discord group and everything.
You know what? The fact is, any of you noodles who watch this, you'll remember there was a prime time for being in the team, and on the page, and everything was active, and it just got too big, and spread too thin, and.
But as evidence suggests,
we're all still homies. But
as evidence displays, the friendships are still there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but just it's like okay. So it started out small.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone in the group was compatible, and then it grew to a point where it becomes exponentially more difficult for compatibility to be.
And then some people can go to some festivals and some can't.
Right, and then some people are more into this vibe or that vibe,
and then from all over the country.
Yeah, and it's like we don't. It's not like anyone in Team Lazy Noodles is like, I hate that guy.
I never even went to the festival. But Ashley Ringler, the Queen co-creator, however you want to call it, was my best friend since high school. And so a lot of our friends, not best friends, we actually met on World of Warcraft. She was on my WoW server. Because a friend that I went to high school with moved to Frisco, where she was from Grapevine, where I'm at, and became friends with Ashley, who also played World of Warcraft, and the rest is history. But and so I first knew Ashley through raiding Scarlet Monastery and being in Ventrilo, back in the day. And it was like, you start talking about, ecstasy and Robitussin. And then I met her. The first time I met her was with another friend, Cody Davis.
Yeah.
So he was also in our WoW group, and he went to my high school. I known that kid since he was 7. But and so we met at a hookah bar. And
you didn't?
Yeah, I had a huge crush on her. I actually knows this, but and she had a boyfriend at the time. Anyways, but no, we actually became friends, really good friends at UNT, and all of her friends were my friends, and we lived together for a while, or 2 different times actually. And I take that back. 1 time, or no, 2 times I guess, because she was at
the second time.
At the Preston house for a year. So we've been roommates 2 different times, and she now lives in Colorado. But
a lot of people keep moving to Colorado.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's a big problem.
It's just a bunch of mountains.
We're losing all of our friends to Colorado.
It's cold.
And then they move up there. They can't afford it. And
they got weed everywhere.
Yeah, they're just high all the time.
Yeah. You can get high anywhere.
Yeah, it's true. You just have to break the law.
It depends.
Yeah.
Depends on what you want to get high on.
That's true too.
Yeah, and that she was star of the Laser Noodles. I remember when she went to Bonnaroo and conceived that, and I was like, I went to other festivals. Like, I'm more into, psychedelic rock and not the generic, boo-aroo. Bonnaroo seemed really cool, but it was really expensive in college.
It's a really good festival because it's so diverse. It's like
that's true.
Their whole theme is kind of like summer camp-ish. I don't know if that's official or not, but it feels very summer campy, and that's what makes it so good, because who isn't able to fit in at summer camp?
Yeah, right. And it appeals to diversity is relative too. So I think, Desert Days is one I've been going to recently, and I'm actually going at the end of this month. But it's starting to get really diverse, like it used to. It was really just like psychedelic rock and like stoner rock and heavier stuff, heavier rock. And then like last year they had electronic artists like George Clanton was like one of the big headliners.
I actually don't know who that is.
Yeah, so he's like a vapor. So he's like kind of was big in the vaporwave music, like chill beats kind of.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's really like alternative music, and even more alternative, than what you would think of commercially as alternative. I mean, these are like you kind of like smaller bands, but yeah. Anyways, a girl like Tame Impala, is probably the best example of they had a
the quintessential Desert Days band.
Sure, yeah, and they've the first time that they played there was the first year I went in 2018, and it got rained out. And they played 3 songs, headlined on Friday, played 3 songs, and started lightning. And it's the first day I was on another planet after being up for 2 days, flying out to camp, fly out on a big metal, through space, to go and camp in the desert. It just seemed there was like some contrast to it. It just was very 21st century,
I mean, camping. That's why camping camping kind of sucks.
Camping's great. You just got to be comfortable.
Yeah,
with
I know.
Letting yourself go.
I'm comfortable in here. So if I were to go camping now, I'd have to really do it up, get like a really nice camper or something.
What is it? It's
like some AC, like a little shower.
Yeah, that's called
cookout. And then it's called glamping, sure, but
glamping. That's it.
Straight up, dude. Why would I do that when I could just
glamp in here?
Go find one of those little Airbnb cabins in the forest.
Glamp in your nice house. It depends though. Music festival camping is way different than
Oh well, I'm
music festival. I'm hiking, in the
mountains. I was thinking beyond the realm of just a music festival. Camping sucks.
Yeah.
But even now, as I get older, thinking back to music festivals, I just I don't know, man. I'm only 29, but I feel like I'm old.
Yeah.
And I can't.
Oh, you are.
I would probably want to get VIP or something and get a somewhat special treatment.
Yeah, and that's what festivals are doing now, especially coming back from COVID. There's all these different packages with Desert Days where you could get premium tents set up and
I would do that. That'd be worth the premium.
That one thing, it was the festival that ended up being a complete scam in the Caribbean. What was that called?
Firefest.
Firefest, yeah. So watching the documentary of that and seeing the camps that were supposed to be, the pre-made tents you could get and the food, meal, the food was provided for you and everything, and then seeing it was like a slice of cheese and some lettuce and
that's horrible.
But no, they have those features, I guess, now, but they're so expensive. I mean, just the festival alone, Desert Days, the tickets with a weekend camping pass was like $700-800.
That's more than it has been previous years. So.
Yes.
And it's
Post-COVID
because
now.
I guess they're trying to make a comeback so that they're financially well. But also, there's a really, really solid lineup of expensive artists this year.
At this, Tame Impala is one. King Giz. Who else is going? I don't know. A lot. But it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Bought my ticket a few days ago. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So tell me a little bit about what you do day to day.
Well, I wake up. I usually eat in the morning. I usually take a shower when I wake up. Actually, I say morning. It could be in the middle of the night or whatever. Usually, brush my teeth after that. And then on work days, I go to work. And that is usually in the evenings. Well,
yeah, but I mean, that's like a big picture kind of description. I'm asking.
Yeah, and then I sleep and,
then you wake up and do it again. That is this dreadful existence.
It's a cycle that I'm on that I'm fortunate for. And I work overnight for the crisis line for Dallas County. People call 988. I'm your guy. I'll be who you talk to. At least in the hours.
So
that
think
I work.
Twice.
No, so it's fun. It's really good work. Background mental health, psychology. Got my degree in 4 years at UNT. I was really fortunate for, and then I really wanted to work right after school. I was on a pre-PhD track, throughout the last 2 years of my undergrad, I did a lot of research and come to find out it's my graduating semester and realized that my GPA was not good enough to be competitive for PhD programs at all. Despite, doing really good work in the lab, the 2 labs that I was in, one of which was the same lab that Dr. Phil actually got his PhD in, the family development lab, child and family development lab at UNT. Dr. Kaminsky was head of the chair there when I was there, and they made a big deal about it. They had his picture on the wall.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I mean, he's top of his field before the show, top of his field in clinical psychology, family psychology, child psychology. He was kind of led a lot of publications and was good about community outreach. Anyways, but yeah, so I was oriented towards research, but quickly wanted to work after school, and so I was like, cool, I like money, and really like the work more than the studying in psychology. I'm more like a biology studier.
You like to get into the actual practice of dissecting a person's thoughts and stuff.
Yeah, or dissecting them, physically. That's fun too, but it's mainly
it's not psychology.
Or I mean, if you break into the brain, who knows what's in there, right? But yeah, also studying neuroscience.
Again, think twice before you call.
I'll be there to dissect you. But yeah, so I quickly got into, I liked working I liked work. It was more exciting than even research. Even though I was good at it, I could have improved my grades and gotten into a program. But I just, after a couple years of working, decided to try to go back to school. That failed. I was in a graduate program, realized I couldn't actually get an LPC, which is like a license, where you can do therapy. But it was just a master's degree program. So it was an MS in cognitive psychology. It was a research oriented, so when you go for counseling, I guess you take certain counseling courses, and it's a counseling program where you can eventually take the state board test and get your license to be a therapist or whatever. So I realized that I had to take another year after talking, and I was burnt out. I was actually volunteering my time the whole year before, 16 plus 20 hours a week in the lab for the program, which helped me get into it, honestly. They saw I was a good worker and everything, but I started taking the courses, and I was driving. That was when I was doing Uber, and just, I was burnt. I was burnt out. I wasn't ready for it to get more stressful, so I ended up just dropping out. $8,000 in tuition, $10,000 loan.
Is that gonna get forgiven?
I already paid it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I was quick about. I made sure that it got paid off.
That's smart.
Which in retrospect now,
smarter than some people.
I probably shouldn't have done that. I regret it now. Don't get me wrong. But so it wasn't a big deal. I realized that I didn't want to particularly go back to school for that. And I thought about the Navy. So actually, I was really dead set on being a pilot. I wanted to do it.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So you almost joined the military, huh? Yeah, you got the jawline for it.
Yeah, the Tom Cruise, Top Gun. No, it was Navy. My uncle was a Navy pilot, an aviator, and had recently retired and started working for Southwest. So I was like, yeah, sure, Anyways, so I realized how expensive flight school was, and man, that was not going to be practical for her, out of pocket or without having the government pay for it.
Yeah, so, got you.
Yeah, to get, the training. And I was 26, 27 is like the cutoff for that. I was talking to a recruiter and everything. And, first wanted to do a 4-year, but then kind of realized, oh, wait, they're not going to approve. They're going to put people in an aviator. They're going to teach you how to fly, billion-dollar planes,
Why not?
If you don't sign up. They want at least an 8-year contract, I guess. I only want to do a 4. Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
That was kind of offhand, typically how they do it, I guess. They're not going to approve. They want at least an 8-year contract. If they're going to train you to fly, you become an officer and you get commissioned to fly whatever. And anyways, so I realized I didn't want to do an 8-year contract. And in retrospect, I was happy. Now looking back at it.
You have your freedom.
But I can't fly planes.
Yeah, but at what cost?
Yeah, and it wasn't even like the whole war thing. I'm not that was more or less, I was indifferent to that at the time. But
well, you do have to change your willingness. You cannot be stubborn against authority in any capacity if you're going to be in the military.
Yeah, and I'm not. Like, it was more the personal freedom. I mean, I had friends and that were my age, but or older or younger actually, that were willing to do that. But it was almost more of a conventional thing in like in their family or something like that. And like my uncle was, but my parents, you know, my dad was not. My grandpa was, you know, in the army, and you know, through Korean War, I guess he enlisted just to get the GI Bill. You know, he wasn't like, you know, he didn't even talk about, you know, so. But yeah, so I dodged that bullet. Tried to teach abroad, but unfortunately I couldn't because of some accidents with the law.
You don't have to go into detail.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to do that. But in any case, they don't let you get work visas, so I was just kind of stuck. And
yeah, are you still in that position where
What?
you can't like go travel, get a work visa internationally?
Well, really just to teach English. I think that's a common thing, especially in South Korea, where I was looking at. They're pretty strict about the work visas and the qualifications, just because people come from all over the country, and you know, there's all different kinds of backgrounds and things lost in translation where people have been exploitive about it.
So, just kind of spitballing here. What if you like applied for citizenship in another country and then applied to teach English in Korea
From that citizenship?
Yeah, from that country's citizenship profile.
Well, I mean, as long as they didn't have my background.
Go for it.
It takes years to become a citizen. I mean, it would also,
it'd be expensive.
He looks like a white American, you know. But no, you had to do, for these visas, you had to do like a fingerprint check and everything. And I mean, it was, if anything was on it. I mean, I got arrested for possession of marijuana and charged for possession of paraphernalia. I don't really care. Lots of people, you know, have had that experience, and usually as a misdemeanor, it doesn't really prevent you from, if it's non-violent, from getting jobs. But yeah, work visas are different. I mean, they don't even let you into Canada with certain misdemeanors, you know. So anyways, couldn't do that. And I was like, oh, you know, I never worked at a hospital, you know. So I got a job at a hospital, psych hospital in Denton there, and as a tech. So I'd be on the floor with, you know, patients, and you know, I could use my degree. You didn't even need a degree for the job. You got paid a little more, and I loved it. Honestly, it was really enjoying. And all the jobs that I had before were like either part-time or inconsistent, you know, with the pay, are not as good, or like, yeah, I was working by myself, and I didn't really have like colleagues, or it would be me and just working with like a student. Yeah, I did brain training for a long time for like kids with attention problems or memory problems, and that was really cool. Like, I wanted to work with kids, you know, and it was my research background too in the family development lab. But I started working at the hospital, and it was it was unlike anything I'd seen, you know, with mental health. I was used to working, the most acute is like a kid having a fit that I would see, but like, you know, at the hospital, those kids pop off, you know, those kids don't fuck around. they get aggressive.
Well, what was the craziest thing you saw? Like, or just one of the craziest things?
Craziest thing that happened with a kid is they had a kid was there for a couple weeks and eventually just snapped. She was a perfect little angel, you know, up until then. And then being that long in a place like that, and she had some personality things that she really needed attention. She needed that external confirmation from the staff, and all the staff thought she was super annoying, and they didn't want to talk to her, and they'd ridicule her just for like being at the nurse's station talking to somebody. But she snapped.
Would you say that like the staff were behaving in that way because they were not trained professionals?
They were trained professionals, but you can only take so much, you know, and it's such a unique field. It combined with understaffing, combined with, you know, just all the things, the stresses that it is working as a nurse.
Like low pay? Is that the issue there?
Not necessarily low pay. I mean, compare, like for that area, like for Denton, it was good, but no, it was just
because I mean, if you like that, to me, that's a big issue.
She had certain needs that weren't being met there. That's it, and she didn't need to be there, but she couldn't be at home, you know. But she snapped. I mean, it was like night and day over one weekend, and she would constantly, you know, maliciously try to hurt herself just because she knew she could get attention with it. And that is, you know, a common thing in psych hospitals, I guess, with people if they're over institutionalized or something like that. But I mean, she was intentionally trying to fall into corners. I mean, the second we would, we'd have to restrain them, and state law only allows you to restrain them for like 15 minutes, right? And then you have to, let go. And then, if they're still going off, then you have to restrain them again. I did 45 minutes of holds on her. And she was strong. And I was I'm a lot bigger, but she was kind of short and and heavier set. But I mean, I had my muscles cramp up like after about 30 minutes where I couldn't even like.
So would you have to like take turns?
Yes, we typically take turns, but I was the only one that could restrain her. Anyways, it was really sad. Eventually they just like administratively discharged her, and I think found another place for her. But yeah, this was years ago. But most of the time it's pretty chill. Like you get to interact and help them through treatment and just kind of make sure they're on their routine. And I took affinity for it. I started working in the military program that was over there, not with kids. I quickly realized I don't want to work with kids once they started hurting themselves or other people. And the military was cool. It was active duty military. They'd be there for a month. And, things worked like they were supposed to. People didn't pop off. They were still getting paid. They were still doing their, contracted job while they were there. And so they had to follow certain rules or they get in trouble with their commanding officer, So it was really rewarding. And then I started working in the intake department because I was, job opened up, and that was rewarding work, but it was way more stressful. I wouldn't be doing codes or anything like that, or having to. People were mostly calm, but my job was to explain them their rights. They're going into a hospital, making sure they can sign themselves in voluntarily or not, or kind of getting at that. And did that for almost 2 years. And
why was that stressful?
Well, yeah, I guess it's because it's always popping. Understaffing, number one. It was for a big company that has hospitals all across the country. Hey, they have a private stock with stock owners and dividends and things like that. So there was that constant pressure to perform with, making do. And
do you think that it'd be better if mental health institutions ran on government funding as opposed to being for profit? Absolutely.
I mean, with certain distinctions, right? I think there's so much that we don't know about the brain, and there's so much that we don't know about people's uniqueness. With a lot of social problems, it's a relatively new field, but there's a lot of money and there's a lot of demand and money for fixing people's problems, right? And with something like cancer or something like other chronic deadly diseases, we're talking about mental health is can be a deadly thing. So you don't really get other people sick with cancer. You can't it's not contagious like that, whereas with mental health, these disorders and things really impact the ones around you. That's where I think there's a quote where it's I have to go to therapy because the person that actually needs therapy doesn't want to go. My friend, or something like that, where it's so there's just a huge demand for it. But really, I think a lot of ways, and I mean, this is my armchair, I've been in a lot of different fields. We really don't know what works, and works for some people, does not work for others. And
I was just thinking about that the other day, talking to Laura about it. It's kind of weird how okay, so I don't take any pills daily. I just don't. It just seems.
Why not, man? They're fun.
Well, I don't want to become dependent on something to create a new normal.
That's true.
In my head. Anyway, I was thinking about how psychiatrists, right? You go see them. Mm-hmm. You can go see a psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. And they're not a therapist, they're a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
So you tell them what you're feeling, and
they don't want to be psychologists, or they don't want to be therapists.
Right. So you just tell them what you're feeling, and or what you don't like that you're feeling, and they're like, here's a drug that I think might have something to do with
some effect on that symptom.
Yeah.
On that symptom that you're doing.
They're like
just doctors.
Prescribe it to you, but
yeah. I have bladder pain. It's okay, well, here's something that let's run some tests.
Yeah, but it's so much. The complexity it compounds so much that
it does.
It's dangerous. Right. I think it's way more dangerous.
Yes, and medication is something that typically is.
It's not mechanical, Well, technically, if you really break it down, it is mechanical.
Yeah, there's a mechanical component to biological, psychiatric or neurological component. But yeah, there's so many other factors, right? And people are taking lifelong antidepressants, or getting on them for years. Well, these clinical trials, where they approve these drugs, are really only taken for months at a time, and then they stop. So it's typically what these, it's to provide an adjustment period of stabilization to learn certain things, or if there's an adjustment, or your body healing.
Are they oftentimes not even trying to see if it works? They're just trying to see if it has a negative effect on the health of the person? Yeah,
and managing side effects and stuff like that. And
so they'll pass something that doesn't even necessarily do what it's advertised to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, case point, antidepressants like SSRIs. There's so much research that show them to be beneficial, and the theories check out. They affect serotonin, and they do have these certain mechanisms of action that can be shown to show some kind of, not just some kind of biological or neurological effect, but also the overall effect of these people are happier, they report being happier and things like that. Placebos also work that way. Placebos, you take a sugar pill every time you're sad. Well, maybe not sugar, or just
sugar makes people really
happy. Yeah. But I guess that placebo effect of every time you're sad, and you're going to think that pill is going, especially if you're told, this might have an effect on your happiness, or this might have an effect on your well-being, or your attention, or your hallucinations. I mean, really, anything, just any kind of psych symptom to some effect, it can show some kind of improvement. Now, whether it's significant or not is really up to scientists, peer reviews. But SSRIs are now over 20-30 years of research showing they don't really do much more than a sugar pill.
That's really interesting.
And it depends on the person. It depends on how severe their depression is, because it's been prescribed for people that just have bad days mostly. I don't like my job, or I'm sad, or these medications are for people who are really acute. They're for people who have suicidality, that have acted on it, or chronic, debilitating disorders. They do show effectiveness with those. That's hands down still. I mean, there's no research to suggest otherwise. If it's done, then it's, probably not as common as successful research with, psychiatric. But anyways, yeah, we went off and talked about anything there.
Yeah.
I then started working at community mental health, where we're not pushed for insurance, and there's a lot of things in intake. It was just admit them. I'd have to ask, well, this person has this problem, and then they're suicidal, but should we admit them? Do they fit? And first question out of our CEO's mouth, well, what insurance do they have? Oh, they have Humana. Yeah, go ahead and we'll admit them. But if they have Medicaid or some kind of managed Medicaid, it was no, decline.
What?
Regardless of what was going on.
Oh, because of the profit aspect.
Yeah, we were always trying to fill beds. And that was the thing, if we were going to get paid for them. That was more of a concern than how could we really help this person, or did this person really need
How
this?
close were you to the CEO?
Well, I worked in the intake department, and we had the CEO was kind of, obviously chief executive, but we had to call him if there were issues, or if there were questions about, say, somebody's insurance or somebody's criteria, what they were there for or being treated for, and if they fit, in our treatment model for an inpatient behavioral health. That's what they're called, behavioral health hospitals. It's not it's not psychiatry, it's not a psych hospital or a psych ward. It's behavioral health, a little bit more appropriate. It's not as much of a stigmatized spin, but it's the same thing.
At my last job, they changed the HR department to HCM. So instead of human resources, it was human capital management. And I was like, they kind of missed the target on that, because they're trying to make it a little bit of a more humane description. But
it's still
they're
HR.
calling us capital at that point.
It's still Karen in that office with a bunch of flowers in it. Live, laugh, and love there.
We're just cubicle. Capital, man. Cubicle. Yeah.
But yeah, so the CEO, I was pretty close, because I'd have to call him about these things and explain a lot of stuff. And, often it was in the middle of the night. So, because I worked overnight, and he wouldn't answer. Or I didn't want to call him about a stupid thing, so I had to be really particular about that. And so it was, that was the interactions. But working overnight, it was through COVID. Is when this is all last like 2 years or whatever, 3 years now. It was really stressful, man, when COVID hit. Like, even though it was a psych hospital, they're gross. I mean, it's not they don't really. It's not like a medical hospital where there's clean facilities and people wear masks at normal hospitals, and we can't keep hand sanitizer around because people drink it. So there was a lot of extra things that we had to do that were required at that time, but didn't get done. That we put it on paper that they were getting done, but they didn't. Like, in regards to spreading, or like checking people at the door, checking for half the time the batteries were fucking dead. And staff would be coming in with symptoms, and they'd, okay, well, you got to work till we can find somebody to fill you.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it was nuts. But yeah, and it was just too stressful. I quit. Didn't work for 2 months, and then got this job right when I moved to Dallas. So I like my job now. It's not as pushy. It's people can refuse. It doesn't matter if they have insurance or not. It's much more of a humane.
Right.
It's just more ethical.
What can we do for you? Kind
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
take
cool.
it or leave it. It's your tax dollars.
You were telling me about like some cool not technology, but some cool like research or something that was coming out recently that you were reading about, and it was in relation to your work.
I don't remember. Was this like recently?
Yes, it was like yesterday, dude. No, 2 days ago.
Oh, well, I was talking about the content we would talk about. So a lot of times in my job, we have to go out. People get calls, right? So, or people call about themselves or somebody else, and we go out in the field and meet them wherever they are. We get a location, ideally a phone number, and coordinate with them when we're on our way out there. But a lot of times other people call for people, like their spouse or their mom, or can you help him? He needs to be locked up in a hospital. And it's like, well, okay, we can't manage that. It takes a lot to put somebody away against their will, really, for longer than like a day. So, and that's Texas. The laws are different everywhere. But yeah, so a lot of what we have to do is going out and engaging with them to get them care. I mean, these are people that are in crisis, maybe probably have some severe issues, and do often, that just aren't oriented to it. They don't really realize it, or they're fine, but it's their loved ones or their friends, or their
right.
That's who it's affecting, and so that's a lot of it, is being able to interview to kind of motivate them for treatment, or just motivate them towards their awareness. And a lot of it's having to ask questions, and getting it at the core of what their needs are. And when you know that, and when you know what they really need, then you can get them treatment, or at least recommend it,
What have you learned about people in general? Like, have you learned to generalize people in a different way because you worked in the mental health field?
Yes. And it's to not generalize. And when it comes down to it, when the point hits the paper, you can have your predispositions to kind of like plan and, prepare and things, but I mean, anything could happen. Everybody's one bad day from being in a psych hospital, really. I mean, right now the world could be fine, but your world and those, you
could fall apart.
Lose your job, come home early, not you, but see your partner.
Say what you're going to say, Will.
Laura.
Say what you're going to say.
You could find your partner because you came home early that day after getting fired with another person. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure it's happening right now as we speak. Well, it's usually after the workday. But
No.
I mean, not now, but to somebody in the world, right? And I mean, that can push people already to the point of, where they're already stressed, might even have, depression already or anxiety, but just to the point where they're going to do something, So catching people in that point is really difficult in that period of crisis, because they often don't know how they got there, or they know, or they don't realize, if they got there in that position, something is outside of their control, or they're not aware that it's in their control. It gets complicated, but mostly it's that anything bad could happen to anybody.
So you've seen all kinds of people from all kinds of backgrounds, like people with money, people who are poor, people who are all different colors and sizes and everything.
Yeah, it's indiscriminate. I mean, mental health,
You ever had to talk to a dude who's clearly like a successful white collar professional. He's wearing a suit or something.
Yes, there was a professor, an SMU professor that I remember responding to, that was suicidal, I guess, and it was really, he just didn't want care. I mean, he just didn't. I had lived with it his whole life, and some recent events had made him, mention to somebody, or I guess his ex-wife at the time, that he was going to carry out with it, and they called, and she called us. Well, we got out, and he said, who are you? And how do you know about that? He had only told one person, right? So in any case, I don't really remember how the case went, but it was a nice, huge, big house. I mean, money obviously can help you, but with comes money, there's stress too. Especially if you're have severe issues.
Right.
Most of the time, it's not with people with money.
So if you had to change fields tomorrow, would you? Well, I guess if you
Yes,
had to,
I'm planning on
you
it.
wouldn't have an option.
I'm actually in the process of it. I'm trying to.
What are you gonna try to do?
What you do, Chris? Work in IT and behind a comfy computer, and
He's already a nerd. He's just gonna do it professionally.
yeah, and something in project development, agile training, and Scrum course or Scrum Master. Some I'm looking at. Had a friend who knows a guy who is a Scrum trainer. He's like a coach, and there's a course that I'm saving up for. I guess that's how certifications work in the IT industry, where you can get certified with certain things, and you can put it on your resume and get a job with it.
Yeah, kind of. Okay, so it really all depends on how social you are in the community. So if you're not very social at all, then you don't need any certifications. You need all the certifications, sorry. If you're not social at all, you have to be certified, because you don't have anyone who has worked with you or seen how you work and can vouch for you. Yeah. But if you're very social, you don't really, you do work and you learn and you make progress, and people see how you work and get to know you, and then all of a sudden you're gone, or they're gone, or one of you has moved on, and then the other of you escalates their position and is like, oh yeah, I remember Chris, or and then so it's all word of mouth, just like anything. And I think
networking, and
one of my favorite things is that I always, when I was a kid, I would always picture business dudes going to business gatherings and having business conversations, or just hanging out, being bros, and it's we're networking together, and then
keep talking. I'm gonna break screen because I'm gonna get a drink.
All right, man.
I'm parched. Keep talking.
Cool. So they would he can still hear me, guys. He's just walking to the kitchen. Anyway, so I always picture, yeah, sure, I'll take one. I always pictured these business dudes networking and hanging out socially, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted the success that they had, but I didn't want to network in that.
You didn't want a Mad Minute?
Right. I wanted to do it differently. And then I found a job that allows it. And in IT, we network by playing video games after work.
Video games, huh? That sounds nice. I like video games.
Yeah.
I like my job. I love working with people, and I love the work that I do and the company I work for. It's just, if I was to make more than 20 something an hour, low 20s an hour, you can make that a QT overnight. And I mean, I have a college degree with 10 years of experience. Come on, it's come on. Go beyond that, I'd have to go back to school. I don't want to be a therapist, and thought about nursing, thought about being a pilot, and all that. And I want something where I just want to kind of broaden my skills, and see what that feels like. I've really only worked in one field, so really want to see what it's about. I always have psych, and that psych to fall back on. That's a skill set.
That'll help regardless.
Yeah.
I think that learning anything, it doesn't matter what field it's in, what it's related to, or how complex it is. It doesn't matter. As long as you're learning something, it'll be relatable to the next thing that you pursue.
Sure.
Because it's really it's all based on.
Oh yeah, I deal with people now. So I and get a job. So how do you deal with people? It's well,
I mean,
let me tell you.
Okay, so there aren't that many fundamental building blocks used to build ideas.
Mm-hmm.
and things. So it's like, since there aren't that many, as
Identify.
long as you're learning the fundamentals of something, it will be applicable to everything.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, even jobs I was looking at, and like kind of background, or I guess healthcare that are more office or administrative stuff. They don't. I mean, it's high school degree. I mean, it makes a little bit more than like what I'm making now, because what I do now, I have a license that's like a 4-year degree, mental health. It's with the state. Qualified mental health professional is the term, but it's not like I can't do therapy with it. It's all just within the organization. But it qualifies me to be able to, go out and talk to people and, get that information, document it, legally, and I guess, provide accountability. Whereas, a lot of office admin stuff, it doesn't require you to be directly, caring for patients or even case management. It's like insurance, paperwork stuff. It's like high school degree, which is cool. I mean, it's great, especially in contrast to like, having to go to school to be a therapist, having to go to school to do all that, and be able to take insurance money is the thing. It all comes back to insurance. Here, why we have so much. I mean, one of the biggest 4-year or biggest graduate school programs is mental health, right? Is counseling. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest ones. MBA, I think, is going to be probably up there, but a lot of people go because they have to get that license if they want to be a therapist. They have to do that. So a lot of it's like the debt. So that's a lot of that money is going to go to relieving therapists' pay, or healthcare workers, or stuff like that. I mean, doctors actually excluded because a lot of them make over $125K a year. So and those are $200,000, right? PhD programs, plus all the extra money. I don't know. Yeah, expensive. So, anyways, I think it a benefit, but in getting in a different field, it's just the pay isn't there. I mean, even with a 4-year degree, I could go, or even with a graduate degree, I'd only be making $5 more an hour. Like, it's not worth going into debt and 2 years of school and the stress of that to just make a little bit more.
That's I think $5 an hour more is actually pretty good. That's okay. So I think it's like $2,080 for every dollar per hour that you make.
Say it again.
And for 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year,
Mm-hmm.
be like $2,080 for $1 an hour increase.
Oh, you're smart. You do math.
No,
that's pretty good. That's quick.
Yeah. Well, I just remember that.
I'm just gonna assume it's right because you were so quick at it.
Yeah. Well, multiply that by 5, and
okay, you lost me.
10,400.
I believe you.
The $5 an hour, 10,400 a year, dude.
Yeah, but try this math. In 2 years or more, plus you got to go into debt. I mean, I would or it's 30, 50 grand for a 2-year program when you're talking about it. So, I'm okay. I'll pass. I don't want to be a therapist anyways. I take that shit home with me. I take it home with me. But yeah, it's kind of hard to pick what you want, and like, I know in one of your previous, I'm a huge fan, by the way, so I've watched all your videos. I'm probably your biggest fan.
Out of all 12
hopefully
fans,
this is
he's
4,
number 1.
and I didn't bore you guys with my pissant work history. But I think it's important to educate people's expectations, with like as a kid. Now it's so hard to be a kid. I don't know if you were talking about how generations lost, like, with kids and the internet and TikTok and, all the kid things. And I mean, I thought it was cool at our age. Well, I guess I'm a little older, but 4chan, like when that happened.
I mean, you're not that much older.
I'm not that much
You're
older.
like 2 years older.
Yeah, same generation, with internet being kind of a new thing with parents, right? There's a huge discrepancy between parents, how to raise, and like just generationally, and then also as parents and what their parents.
Definitely.
And you're a parent now, so, but you get a little baby, and as they start getting older, they're just exposed to things with the internet, and
Right.
That you would have never conceived of,
used
or
to-
aren't even in their immediate environment.
Growing up, I used to be like, I'll never be one of those parents sheltering my kid, blah blah blah, and I was like, it's wrong to do that, man. Your kid needs to be exposed to the world and see what's out there, and that way they're ready for it. I used to say that, but I see what the world is now, and it's like, it's too much, dude. Like
It is. It's too much.
Pure freedom
Too
to
big.
explore everything on the internet and all of the world around you physically too. It's too dangerous
It's
now.
a lot. Yeah.
It's especially living in a city, dude. It's way too dangerous now. I can't, like, I will do my best to try to send Scarlett to a private school, and she will still be exposed to at least as many
private
things.
school's where the party's at, man. That's where the money's at.
Oh, I'll do some research and try to find a wholesome one.
Uh-huh.
But I know for sure she'll still be exposed to all of the same things, at the very least the same things that I was exposed to as I grew up,
Sure.
without shelter, without being sheltered.
Were you, I guess, incited into what's right and wrong? Well, like, I mean, I'm not a critique
Yes.
on your parenting, okay, or your parents, but yeah, that is crucial.
Yeah,
you know,
you just need the foundation laid, like how to,
the judgment. you know.
I don't know if this was in everyone's elementary school, but we had this thing on the wall. It was like this plaque, and it said, "Treat others the way that you want to be treated."
That's
And
from
it
the
was
Bible.
The golden rule. Well,
The Bible has got a coin. Got
okay.
a coin
Well,
on that.
it's from the Bible,
It's
but
the Bible.
also it's
Fuck the Bible,
it's
but-
from the Bible, but it's also from my elementary school's kindergarten class wall.
Okay, so maybe they had claim on it. I don't know.
So
Yeah,
I
I've
don't know.
heard that before.
I don't know. I think the terms of the copyright on the Bible went out. Or
To treat
something.
others the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
That's empathy. I mean, I say you're empathizing with people, you know, whereas
I don't know
Yeah.
about that actually. I'd say that's sympathy, and let's
no. Okay, no sympathy. I actually did know this because at my job we do it. So sympathy is where you're feeling sorry for people. Is where you're feeling, you know, I guess, not necessarily acting on it. You're feeling their pain, or you're understanding their suffering, right?
Your
Acknowledging it.
perspective is absorbing a bit of their perspective.
Yeah. Now, but empathy is action, is behavior, and feeling empathetic, and like you're feeling that with them. You're not just
I don't know about
sympathizing
that. I disagree. I know
All
words
right,
are fluid.
we're these
and
fact checkers. You
I
mean,
know-
It was like
I know
episode
words
2. You were talking
yeah,
about
go-
getting fact checkers on here.
Go ahead and fact check this here. But I think that empathy is supposed to be
Fact check this.
it's it's supposed to be an understanding of the feelings that a person has.
Sure.
So if it's an understanding of the feelings that a person has, and I think all these people running around saying, "I'm an empath," and I'm empathetic, and
Well,
so
yeah, and that's so you're sharing those
and it's
feelings,
like
right?
if you're sad all the time,
You're
you're not empathetic, you're sympathetic. And if you're looking at people like, dude, come on, man, like it's not like, let me help you through this, let me tell you what's going on, and let me tell you how to fix it, and you fix it and we move on. Those are empathetic people. That's my perspective.
yeah, and there's a behavior and an action with it. I mean, empathy is a tool, at least in counseling, and your therapist won't admit to it, but and most of them don't know how to do it. But it's more or less like you're using empathy and like sharing that emotion, you know, like crying with whoever.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
And it can be used as a tool. Now, obviously, ethically, there's, you know, certain consequences that if not done professionally have any, but no, it's a tool. Like, it's the most powerful one for sure. I mean, it's what a lot of people are craving and, you know, don't have or are deprived of it, is that connectedness and
Dang.
sharedness.
So do you think a lot of therapists okay, let me put it this way. Do you think therapists, the majority of them that do that at least, do you think they're able to control the empathy, or is it something like can they tap into it, or
they're
is it
trained
something-
to. They can be trained to if it was part of their training.
So are there a lot of them, do you think, that cannot
And-
turn that empathy
Yes,
off?
absolutely.
And so they're kind of broken too.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. There's a lot of implications for it. Whether, I mean, we were talking about the patient or client, whoever, somebody who's getting that treatment, who's vulnerable, right? And whatever kind of therapy it is, whatever their needs are, and whatever kind of, if there's a specialist or not, you know, there's boundaries that can be crossed. Obviously, if you're fucking your therapist, you know, that's maybe not as much empathy, but that's a huge boundary.
There's some ethical issues there.
I don't know why I brought that up. It's a completely different thing than what we're talking about. But yeah, I mean, there's crossing those ethical lines. which it can still have a benefit for the patient or the client, but your ability as a therapist, like, and to kind of operate as a facilitator of their own thoughts, really just getting them. Therapy is the therapist is just trying to get you to think a certain way, with thinking that it's your idea and your motivation, right? They're not going to tell you what to do. That's a big no-no. You know, like a therapist telling you what to think. You know, a lot of people need that.
Tell them what to think, but what about like suggesting, like, do you think maybe you feel this way because of this? What if you tried this to resolve that?
Exactly. Yeah, and just approaching it a different way where they talk about it and can kind of come to those conclusions themselves. And you kind of, you know, this is the biggest mediator. Like, you know, with somebody that you're at, somebody needs to do something. You need them both to agree on it, but the one person just isn't. You just try to. The strategy that works for me is you get them to think of it as their own idea. You know, oh, that's a good idea that you thought about that, and then they say, oh yeah, okay, well, it's my idea and we'll do it. You know, they commit, more likely to commit to it. But yeah, empathy can definitely be used as a tool in therapy, but not just therapy. I mean, obviously it's something that is ingrained in our evolution. It's like neurobiological, and we have, you know, evolutionary components to it. That
do you know when the first therapist existed?
No, I don't.
That's actually it's just something I thought maybe
I mean, like de facto therapist, because there's, you know,
I
like
thought maybe since you were in the field,
Plato,
Socrates and Plato, did they sit there and
I
listen
do
to
know who the first one was. Freud, I guess, is technically, you know, the therapist.
The first,
yeah, he's psychotherapy. I mean, he started
the field.
Started psychotherapy.
Wow.
I mean, he wrote about it. It was termed it. I don't know the first one. I mean, you could say a preacher. You could say a fucking preacher, not a preacher, whatever they were called in Catholicism.
Yeah, I guess that was too broad of a question.
Jesus was the first.
It's too broad of a question because I would have to ask, like,
what's a therapist? You know,
right? Is it someone who gets paid? Like, what?
Yeah.
And that's a good question or a good point.
Well,
but Freud was the first one who got paid for. Huh?
Yeah, well, and he, you know, did a lot of cocaine and
so he
other
says.
things.
We're gonna fact check that later.
Very documented. He did cocaine and gave it to his patients.
I mean, I believe that. I'm talking about the fact, like the alleged fact.
First therapist, yeah. I mean, nobody was paying for therapy until Freud. Nobody went to a doctor for, you know, mental health things like that.
Therapy and like, nah.
Yeah,
I'd rather just like hang upside down and get blood poured out of me.
Who knows? That might be an effective thing nowadays for mental health issues, for stress or whatever. Trepanation was a common practice. Trepanation is where I think it's trepanation. I don't know. Where you drill a hole in somebody's head.
Oh, so
phrenology was where like certain areas of your skull are corresponded to different abilities, like personality aspects. Yeah, you remember? So in Andes, you remember going to Andes in Denton? Then there was the mini mall right next to it. If you look, I don't know, because I just remember this because I'd be out smoking cigarettes in front of there all the time. But you look in the window of the mini mall, and there was like a porcelain white head sitting, and it had all these like grid, you know, it had like areas.
Yeah,
zones.
I do. Yeah.
And what are you doing in the show? You're not supposed to be talking, Laura. Yeah, but see, you know what I'm talking about. Well, phrenology, you know, it'd have all these like personality traits or like aspects of people where this area corresponded to that. And I mean, that was people's explanation for how the brain worked only 100 years ago, 150 years ago. So that's new. I mean, that's very, like, that's only a couple generations, you know,
right?
Where we thought, you know, like touching and stimulating part of your, you know, part of your head made you more, you know, more insightful or more empathetic or more, you know,
100 years later we're working on Neuralink. Like,
do what?
100 years later we're working on Neuralink.
Yeah, and then
like,
you know,
implanting a net.
Yeah, do you remember that headset that I had, or did I ever show you that? It's a transcranial direct current stimulator, or a TDCS device.
Sounds scientific.
Yeah, so I did this at a lab that I worked at, I was in at UNT or at UTD. That was the program that I was in that I dropped out of. But yeah, we hook up brain stimulation. I mean, it's electrodes to people's scalp, you know, and it stimulates part of the brain, like low voltage, you know. Then there's
So you had one of these?
so I had a little headset device that was commercial. I still have it. I haven't used it in years, but it was like a headset, and I had 2 or 4 electrodes, like 2 here, 2 on this side and 2 on this side, and it stimulated your frontal cortex. But you can stimulate different parts of your cortex.
So okay, so how did that make you feel?
So it was advertised as a gaming stimulation thing. They couldn't advertise it to treat disorders, right? Clinical disorders, because that would be that would be illegal, and they would get shut down. FDA would be on their ass fucking hard. So they advertised it as a gaming stimulator, and it was like $250, but it was a device. So it was like you could hook it up to your phone, and it had all these different settings that would allow you to stimulate that part of the brain and their frontal cortex to be like better at gaming, right? And focus. It was actually called Focus device, as a company, and it was really cool because
It worked?
it worked in a way that was not overt. So the best effect I got from it was, at the time, this was in college, when I was very experimental with my devices and powders. I had a lot of friends who were musicians, and I had a buddy of mine had a space where we could bring over our rig and drum. He had a drum kit, but I bring over my amp, all my shit, and I had it set up there for a while, and we jam. It was the first time I had ever like played music with people. But when I got that headset, I had put it on while I was practicing guitar at my house, and I was like, whoa, he put it on for like 15 minutes, and it has an effect of like, for like 45 minutes to an hour of just increasing. You have to be doing something like while you're doing it, but it stimulates your frontal cortex, and that's responsible for, executive function, focus, and, kind of organizing everything that's going on in your brain at a higher level.
I gotta wonder how much of that was placebo, maybe.
It was, there's always a portion of it that is placebo. Even if you're taking a Tylenol. I mean, if you're taking anything, any kind of treatment, whatever that treatment is, if it works or not, there's still a part of it of you knowing that it works, and you're half of the effect, right? You have some control, a portion of accountability to that increased effect. So there's a part of it, but it was way different because you could feel like a lock. Like I felt like locked in. Like
Dude, I kind of want to try that thing.
I have it. I'll bring it over.
You should bring it.
Yeah, I hadn't used it,
cool.
but I put it on. My friends would try it, jam. So I brought over jamming one time, and it was way different. You just get locked. I got locked into it. And I'm not a professional musician. I mean, I played guitar for almost 10 years, but it's very like armchair. Pick up the guitar, play the same thing every time, and put it down. So it was a new thing.
Yeah, like stimulated some creativity.
Yeah,
made some connections that you wouldn't.
Well, it allows you to just focus. I mean, that's what it did. And so stimulating that part of the brain was good.
It just like it quiets that monkey brain in the front.
Yeah, it really just help. It's kind of like a boost, and you can stimulate different parts of the cortex. Like the lab I worked in actually helped, coordinate this, and they were doing research on it if it helped relieve people with multiple sclerosis symptoms, and they would, we'd have a placebo.
And you're talking about the one that covered the whole head, right?
Well, yeah. So you don't really know. That would be less effective. It's important to target certain areas with that stimulation.
Okay, so where would you target for multiple sclerosis?
Parietal lobe, back the kind of the top section, really like right here where you have coordination between for your limbs,
Dude, I'm like super intrigued by this. What is this technology called again?
It's called it's called cranial stimulation for electric, and that's been around. Like ECT is, I guess, the oldest, right? And they still do that today.
ECT, the
electroconvulsive therapy.
Yeah, and that's
where they give people like seizures, like temporarily for
you can
severe disorders.
Women with bad cramps can use them, right?
Oh man, I don't know. No? Doctor. I mean, sure.
Am I thinking of the wrong thing? I'm thinking of the things that you can like stick them on.
Oh yeah, those are. Oh, I'm talking about. So ECT has been around since like the 40s and 50s. I mean, pretty much it's a brain shocking. I say brain shocking.
You're talking about shock therapy.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
No, I mean, it's convulsive, electroconvulsive, where it's like induced convulsions, and it's actually to kind of reset. It resets your brain, and it can help for a lot of people. with severe treatment resistant medications have never worked or make people worse. Clinical depression is what it's common for. And it can work, but it's, there's a lot of side effects with it, like, memory loss and lower cognitive function. And like, you have to account for those. And when you're thinking about treatments like that,
that's
like,
more often than not, that's really just like the very last step that you would take. And it's when you're not functional in society otherwise anyway.
Yeah. Or, you have a lot of severe, for example, I guess we're on the topic of depression, suicide events, or you get really close to death multiple times. Like a doctor that has enough treatment history and background on a person, that's monitored. Like you have to, really know this person's history down to the T, to be able to even administer and get paid for that treatment. Because insurance companies don't take it lightly. But yeah, so it's in that vein. It's definitely not like ECT. It's very low stimulation. We're talking millivolts, like that just kind of barely does something. You feel a little tingle, and on your brain. Oh, Scarlett's here. I guess it's over, right?
Yeah. Well, typically when Scarlett shows up, that's a sign. Hey, Scarlett, come say hi to the camera.
Hey, what's up, Scarlett? I like your little pajamas.
Say hi.
Hi.
Say hi. She will not talk. We'll get her to talk.
But yeah, I'll bring that device over. That'd be good.
Say hello.
She don't like it. I don't know if the camera can see her, but
yeah, you can't see her.
Yeah.
Say hello.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. You got to be doing something. You can't really do it and stare at the wall.
Say hello again.
It does kind of feel like taking like a stimulant, like an Adderall or something like that.
Okay,
where you feel like locked into things. Oh, I'm not done talking.
Oh, you're not?
I was just gonna finish with what the device is, but it makes you really locked into what, like, really focus on what you're doing. So you can't just do it and stare at a wall, and you're just gonna feel weird. But yeah, like reading.
Yeah, if I'm like playing
that.
video games or reading, yeah.
Yeah, it's something that's naturally stimulating.
Dude, I
hope it still works now.
I'm tempted to like order one of those on Amazon, try it out for a week, and
yeah, or at least my device. But you could probably get something.
Oh, there's probably some Chinese knockoff version. It uses like 10 times as many laser beams shooting into your head.
Yeah, you can use it for your cramps too, for that time of the month.
Just go to a concert, stick your head in a subwoofer.
I think humor was something else I wanted to about how important of a thing it is, and like making people laugh. And like what that
hard
is,
as I try, I just don't. Yes.
Beer. That's a White Claw. But yeah, humor is like, it's evolution. It's like yawning. I mean, really, it's involuntary. You have no control over it. Yet it has such like a profound effect on, people's well-being, or like, from overall well-being to like their, small interactions, and being able to like learn somebody and trust somebody. If you laugh with them, like there's so much other factors that can go out the window, that don't need to be. If, you share that laughter with them, it's important.
Well, thanks for being on the show, dude.
Hey, I appreciate it. Anytime.
Now we're going to finish drinking these claws. We're going to eat some pizza.
It was a privilege.
Now for real. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. How long was that? That was long.
It felt long as shit, right? What is this, Joe Rogan?
Hour?
Hey, no, Scarlett. That's my beer.
She's gonna keep grabbing it.
Hey, what's up? What up? Yeah, it was mostly about my job, or about
hour and 3 minutes.
Honestly, dude, everyone needs like a part 5, part 1, part 2, part 3, because it's like an hour isn't enough.
Yeah.
The podcast that I watch.
We talked about the main things though, like science and working in healthcare.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
No,
Is the audio good?
Oh, the audio is surely good, yeah.
Usually what?
Usually the podcast that
Audio
I
is
watch,
always good.
people